March 18, 1901, in Ontario, Canada, Manly Palmer Hall was born. Raised by his grandmother, who believed that the greatest chance for happiness was in taking joy in daily work and service, he ascribes to her the creation of his fundamental values. At the age of 18, the young student moved permanently to Los Angeles. He was invited to speak to a small group of people assembled over the bank in Santa Monica, California. The following year, Manly was asked to hold a lecture series in Los Angeles. Thus began a lifetime of service as a lecturer and teacher. In his own words, he said, "The mind must be taught to think, the heart to feel, and the hands to labor. When these have been educated to their highest point, then is the time to offer them to the service of their fellow man, not before." Ordained as a minister by the Church of the People at 22, Manly began a trip around the world. His pilgrimage took him to many of the great cultural centers in Europe and Asia, from Korea to India, from China to Japan. His journey allowed him to encounter the amazing variety of human cultures, customs, and beliefs, and to experience the common threads of wisdom that bind together all of mankind. Returning to Los Angeles, Manly deepened his studies of the origin and destiny of humanity. For 7 years, his principal endeavor was the creation of his big book on symbolic philosophy. In 1928, at the age of 27, Manly published the book that would perpetuate his dream. With the first edition completely sold out, The Secret Teachings of All Ages went to press. This encyclopedic outline of Western esoteric tradition describes in detail the ancient theory of education, which was in the keeping of the so-called mystery schools, truly the first universities. With his broad knowledge, insight, and obvious love for his fellow man, Manly began to gain eminence as a lecturer in the 30s. While continuing to write prodigiously, he spoke throughout the country, including capacity audiences at Carnegie Hall in New York.
And in those early days, he was a real idealist. He took up a collection and he sold his books for whatever people wanted to pay for them. And this was in the days of the Depression, coming up from Los Angeles, staying in San Francisco, the hall rent, the hotel, and all the other expenses. And I was working in the printing industry at the time, and I know these people didn't give what the books were worth. I came to appreciate the great humanity in him, his patience and understanding. All through these years, I saw him give of himself unstintingly. As I met him in 1922, he was active with the Church of the People in Los Angeles. He was an ordained minister, and he always wanted to have his own group, his own center. And so this was to have his own meeting place where people could come, read these books that he had in the library, and read his books.
The dream of creating a space where people could seek a better understanding of life's plan was realized in 1934 with the construction of the Philosophical Research Society headquarters. A library was built to house Manly's extensive collection of world art, artifacts, manuscripts, and great writings. A study hall and print shop were added, where Manly personally, through the understanding of which we strengthen insight and become more intuitive. In 1959, construction of the PRS Lecture Hall gave Manly a place at the Society to continue his lectures to capacity crowds.
Man has built this tremendous material way of life upon the surface of a natural sphere. And this sphere continues its natural course regardless of man, carrying him as it always has in this great circular march or procession around the sovereignty of the sun.
The basic principle that I drew from Manly's writings and knowing him through the years, I think was behind Manly's repeated return to the adept tradition, or the tradition of the secret societies, the initiatory rites, and the private training since the beginning of time, when people were instructed how to sharpen and integrate their personalities, not only for selfish reasons that they might live, but even, perhaps more importantly, that the great world spirit, civilization itself, is encouraged, refreshens itself, and that there is something to pass on to future generations. Manly Palmer Hall was on a long journey. He was an old soul, and he lived his myth with an extraordinary integrity and honesty. This gave him that particular attraction that he had, that magnetism. He was there. He was living the fact of his inner life.
Now, it seems that in this moment and in these periods, that the most important thing that education can bestow upon anyone is incentive. It can give the individual a realization of his own place in the plan of things. Education can convey to the average person some concept of the world in which he lives, its history, its destiny, and the various processes through which it is passing. Education can fit the individual for a better life than he has at the moment. But to do this, education must devote itself primarily to the proving of the integrity of the universal purpose. Education must prove to the convenience and to the conviction of many people that the whole, and it learned in every one of those 10,000 years the value of peace is now dedicated to the greatest destruction the world has ever known. What's the matter? Is everybody slowly going crazy? Is it possible that there is in the human being no more of integrity than that? What has happened to humanity? So the problem comes right down to our friend doorstep in the problem of modern stress and strain. We are under stress all the time. An individual who lives contrary to his own integrity is always under stress. An individual who has no integrity at all to live with, he's under still worse stress. For stress has something to do with honor, and honor has something to do with an integrity at the source of things. If there is no right at the source of life, then all integrity is foolish. Or, perhaps under those conditions, we should settle down and try to create an integrity. We have to have it, and it looks very much as we go back over the pages of history that we had it when we were born, that we had it when our ancestors were born, and that we've had it since the beginning of time. The only problem with this is that this integrity interferes with the profit system. It interferes with the irresistible impulse to dominate somebody. And in military and political matters, the almost inevitable pressure to conquer the world. If we go back and look over the ground of millions of people that have lived and built and dreamed and hoped and died on this little ball in space. If we look out, we will realize that God is probably the largest singular belief that we have. It is a belief, however, which has produced comparatively little result, because if it was honest of people who believe in realities, and believe that these realities are spiritual, and they believe also that these realities must be lived if we want to get out of the mess. And ambitious tyrants, little dictators, and munition manufacturers would be very unhappy. Well, they must not be allowed to suffer like that. The world we live in is a world that is filled with divine love. Love for the littlest thing that exists. Love for the mote and the sunbeam. Love for all the little creatures of nature. All the things that we are destroying with our abuse of the ecological situations. The world we live in was primarily a world of friendship, of getting along together, the lion and the lamb sitting down together in solving the problems of life. This world was a garden until we subdivided it and began to think of it in terms of profit by the acre. The moment we became mercenary, the garden faded away. And we had continents with various colored backgrounds on maps. And we had these map countries always fighting each other. There was never can be and never will be anyone who can own the earth or control it or dominate it. It belongs to the great system of worlds to which we all belong. It is our step upward into something else. If we try to destroy it, we destroy the very stairs upon which we have to climb. All these things have to be corrected and put in their proper relations. And when humanity becomes harmless, it will not be subject to harm. When it becomes aware of the values of life and the principles that it should understand and nourish and protect, it will have a peaceful existence. There's no reason why the human family should not be the brightest and noblest things on the planet at this particular time, and that all other forms of life should gather around it as children gather around the parents, that all the animals and birds and everything in the world would find its place in a world where everything is thoughtful of everything else.
unique and a most enlightening and inspiring individual, because the greatest work that he did in Masonic research, he did before he was a Mason. And I was present on occasion, prior to him being a Mason, when he would teach Masonry to officers and to students of Masonry. And the fact that he could do so made us recognize even more that what we possessed and thought was uniquely ours in terms of wisdom was available to others who dedicated their lives in a certain manner.
It was my privilege to have Manly join the Masonic ranks and have him join in San Francisco. And then when I became Grand Commander of the Scottish Rite, I had the privilege of signing papers for him to be admitted into our ranks. I also nominated him for election to the Knight Commander of the Court of Honor, and then later to become a member of the 33rd degree, and then just recently, within the past 5 years, as recipient of the highest award any Masonic body can make, which was the Grand Cross, which was conferred in ceremonies at Los Angeles. His great friend, Burl Ives, was there, and Burl had received an honor also. So the two of them were just in rhapsody between themselves to be so honored by this huge crowd and given the opportunity to express a few words. I think of Manly also as a man who truly exemplifies the few words that mean that you follow in the footsteps of those that go before you, because he has left his footsteps for other people, and even his most recent great interest of a scholastic form of home study shows and testifies to his ability to foresee, to look into the future.
I think as a Mason today, I have a right to speak up, and that is to say that the coming years are going to be of the greatest importance to the Masonic Order. By some mysterious circumstance, which is a little, no one has noticed as far as I can tell, the 21st century has a strange reminiscence to the 21st year of a person's life. This is the year of the coming of age. It is at that time that theoretically the person adult is an adult. So on the 21st birthday of a nation, something very important must be considered. It must be the time in which that nation comes into its maturity, comes into its responsibilities and its opportunities, and comes to take on the charms and the labors that are important to it. And we find in the records of the early Masonic work in this country references to the things that were accomplished under certain conditions. In the next few years, therefore, we are very likely to realize that we are at an impasse. The situation is serious. The stumbling and grumbling processes that we use will not prevail. Every day we come into worst condition. Every day the water is worse. The earth is more polluted. The air is more tainted. The more difficulty, the destruction of natural resources, the continuance of war, the development of destructive weaponry, all these things go on. Now, if they go on long enough, something is going to happen. Something is going to remind us that man does not have the right to destroy that which he did not create. He has not the right to take a beautiful world with all its privileges and opportunities and turn it into a purgatory. Every day we read the paper, there is more selfishness, more cupidity. And in a few years now, we're going to come to this period of a new generation. Now, there are a lot of people who are hoping a lot for this new generation. They are hoping that we're going to make a major step forward. Well, I think we will, and I think we will succeed. But I think it is very important that this situation should remind Freemasons that they have something to live for. They are not in something that was just an accident or an incident or for which they're paying dues. They have taken the obligations of being there when necessity arises. In the long, peaceful years, they can enjoy their own way of life. But when emergency arises, it is the duty of those who are dedicated to the common good to stand firm and do that which is necessary. It is time for them to begin to work with this problem. Almost all of the secret societies of the past have been dedicated to clean up jobs. They've all come like the Knights Templars to take care of the corruptions of various beliefs and doctrines. They came to take the place of political corruption that was beyond hope. Every day, in every way, the brothers were at work, sometimes secretly but always continuously. And in the next period of time, it seems to me we have Masonry coming of age. Whether we realize it or not, it has been with us in one way or another for over 4,000 years. It has led us through many desperate emergencies. It has given us the strength to do great things. It has given us Washington and Franklin and Jefferson. It has given us all kinds of disciplined support. It has given us great ideals and great hopes and great visions. And now comes the time when these have got to be put into action. There is no reason why there should not be a powerful reuniting of the light of Masonry in the hearts of every Freemason. We're not asking for treason. We're not asking for disobedience. We're asking for dedication. We're asking the nation to get down and do what is necessary and possible for him to do. To do things for his own family, do things for his community, take a new interest in his children, to become more and more aware of the need for the regeneration of his literature and the integrities, the dedications, the beliefs, the hopes and ideals of the secret organizations of the last 5,000 years can be brought together in one definite purpose. There is one definite purpose, as we find God has given America to be free. To be free, it must be free of its own weaknesses. It must be free of a sort of lazy situation that is not mindful of the sale of munitions to other nations, that is not able to control the development of these destructive forms. We can't ask, and we don't ask them to do anything illegal, but we ask them that in every way possible, when they have the choice, they stand for truth. And if necessary, stand and take a little punishment for it. Because from the beginning of time, Freemasonry has been punished for its love of truth. But out of its punishment came the United States. We were founded by Masonic pressures. We were founded by Masons. We were founded by some of the best minds of our time, the most dedicated minds of our time. We were founded by people who sacrificed much and also gave their lives in many cases. But we came through. We came through because of a definite determination that the way of light shall prevail. Therefore, it is very important to
In Manly's own words lie a blueprint for the future. He wrote, "Education at any age is a lifelong dedication to the improvement of character and the enlargement of understanding. There is no reason why PRS should not be remembered like Plato's Academy. But if it is to continue, the Society must make use of the most advanced technology available. I now envision a university of the mind and think that through proper organization, we can bring this message of enlightened living to a much greater audience throughout the world.